Since you're watching this video, you are probably a perfume lover and you can completely relate to becoming obsessed with one particular note in perfume. Right now, I am obsessed with Mimosa and I cannot get enough of Mimosa in perfume. Now, I find Mimosa to be a little mysterious and a little complicated, which is sort of interesting because it is such a bright, fluffy blossom that it doesn't seem like it would be confusing and mysterious. But when you start delving into the mimosa blossom, you find that it is described in a variety of ways. It is described as tart and powdery and animalic and pollen-like and sweet and honeyed. There are very differing adjectives to describe this particular note. And then what's also a little bit confusing is when you look up mimosa, you will find that the actual mimosa plant, or I don't know if it's an actual shrub, but mimosa itself, the true mimosa, is not actually yellow, it is pink, and it does not have a scent. That is not what is used in perfumery. It is actually the acacia plant that we refer to as mimosa in perfumery. And there's two types of acacia plants that are typically used in perfumery. It is the Acacia dilbata, and from my understanding, that is typically what we think of as mimosa in perfume. And the scent is very soft, sweet, honeyed, green, and deeply floral. And then there's also Acacia farnesiana. This one tends to be more animalic. It's also warm and very honeyed, but this species tends to be powdery as well. Like I said, animalic. It also has a little bit of a cinnamon quality to it, can lean a little bit into the iris territory. So like I said, it's a little confusing, a little mysterious, and perfumers do not have to list the exact notes in a perfume. So rather than get confused by mimosa, I just like to feel that it is mysterious. It's a little bit of a shapeshifter. It's also going to depend, of course, on the overall perfume formulation. So other notes are going to heighten certain aspects of the mimosa experience. It might also subdue certain aspects of mimosa as well. So I just wanted to give a little bit of an overview about mimosa because, like I said, I've become obsessed with mimosa and I do find it very interesting to learn about particular notes when you are diving down the rabbit hole with a particular note obsession. But let's go ahead and jump into the 5 mimosa perfumes that I am most enjoying right now. The first 2 I'm going to talk about are leathery perfumes that feature mimosa. And I just have a sample of the first one I'm going to talk about, and this is from Maison Violet. This is called Un Air d'Apogée. Pardon my terrible French pronunciation. I do not speak French, but nevertheless, I'm going to refer to this perfume as Un Air for short for the duration of this video. But I do want to show you real quick the coffret, the discovery set that I got from Maison Violet. It is really, really lovely. And this is what it looks like. And you can see that this is where Un Air belongs right here. I also am really in love with a beam from this collection. I reviewed a beam in my video where I talked about my favorite Palo Santo scents. So if you are curious about a beam, I will link that video up above so you can go and check that out. Now, so far, I have been very impressed with the offerings from Maison Violet. So if you would like me to do a review of the full range of Maison Violet's offerings, I could definitely do that in the future. I really feel like this is an absolutely beautiful line, very well done in terms of all of their perfumes. So that is definitely something I could do in the future. But focusing here on Un Air, this is an absolutely gorgeous leather perfume that, like I said, features mimosa. This is my scent of the day. I sprayed this about 2 hours ago, and I have been enveloped in this gorgeous hay-like, tobacco, leathery powderiness with, of course, the mimosa blossoms just filling the air, and it is really, really elegant. So if you are somebody who likes light, leathery perfumes, this is definitely one you might want to look into. I find it to be very, very wearable, very bright, very sunny, and like I said, just a little hint of powderiness. And the opening of this perfume is really gorgeous. It's very sparkling, and you kind of get that initial hint of a dusting of that hay quality. It's not a barnyard hay though. It's not super animalic or kind of a dirty hay. It's very light and just kind of gives you a feeling of more of a meadow, more so than a barnyard. So like I said, very sparkly, little dusting of hay. And it also has a little bit of a mineralic hint to it. So you get a little bit of a saltiness in that opening. And then as the heart settles into the dry down, it's incredibly exquisite. You get even more of that yellow powdery sunlight feeling where the sunlight is tanning some leather. And then as it progresses even more into about the 7-8 hour mark, it becomes a true skin scent where it really melds into your skin. You start to get that mineralic scent that you first get in the opening. So it gets a little bit salty on the skin with that tanned leather, just like I said, blending into the skin with hints of mimosa. That sweetness really lingers. And I find it to be very complex. I love the evolution. And in the midst of all this complexity, it's very, very wearable. So I know that sometimes leathers can be a little bit off-putting. They can sometimes be too strong. Like someone's got a leather whip that's cracking, you know, kind of like dominatrix. It's not like that at all. It's very soft and smooth. And like I said, very wearable, an easy reach type of perfume. So in a nutshell, it's a very beautiful leather, light floral perfume, but much more complex than that. It's a very, very elegant, beautifully constructed, leathery floral perfume. Mimosa, of course, being the standout floral in this, and I really, really love it, and I think I'm going to have to get a full bottle of this at some point. Now, staying with the theme of leathery floral perfumes, the one I'm going to talk about next is Caleche by Hermes. This is a stunning perfume. In my opinion, it's a masterpiece by Jean-Claude Helena. Now, at the top of this perfume, similarly to Un Air by Maison Violet, it is very sparkly at the top, and that is because of the grapefruit in the top note. So I would not say this is super fruity, but the grapefruit definitely lends an effervescence to the top of this perfume that is very elegant. So like I said, not super fruity, but an effervescent, sparkling elegance to this perfume. And I think I'm probably going to say elegant or classy quite a bit when I'm talking about this perfume, because this perfume just radiates elegance and class in my opinion. Now, Narcissus and Lily of the Valley are also listed as top notes in this perfume, but I don't get those strong spring blossoms in this perfume at all. Now, when it comes to the heart developing in this perfume, rose, mimosa, and tuberose are listed in the heart. So this perfume is definitely a floral. There is no denying that at all. But when it comes to the composition, I wouldn't say that tuberose particularly stands out, and I don't think the rose stands out particularly for me either. It's definitely the mimosa. It's that honeyed sweetness of the mimosa that when we get to the leathery aspect of this perfume really comes together with the leather. So it's that green, almost clean, honeyed, sweet aspect of mimosa that really shines through in this perfume. Again, very elegant, very classy. It's that type of floral that I get in the heart of this perfume, and it shines through right away for me with that sparkling top note. And then at the base, leather and iris are listed, and that's when you start to get another floral experience coming through from the iris. So iris is sort of similar to mimosa in that it's a little bit of a shapeshifter. So iris can be a little bit powdery, but it can also be a little bit cold, a little bit austere. And I think this perfume plays with the more austere side of iris. And so the iris and the mimosa interplay really nicely with each other because the iris is green and austere, whereas the mimosa is green and sunny, and they just play really nicely off of each other. And then with the dry down coming through with that leatheriness, it's a little bit more animalic, but incredibly tasteful, very wearable, just like Un Air by Maison Violet. There's nothing off-putting about this perfume, at least in my perspective. So I think both of these perfumes are incredibly gorgeous, leathery floral perfumes. I would say the main difference is Caleche feels a little bit more austere, maybe a little bit more elegant, whereas Un Air by Maison Violet has maybe a little bit more of a casual feeling, like frolicking in a meadow, but both of them are equally as beautiful and I love them both. Now that I've talked about leathery mimosa perfumes, I'm going to move into purely floral mimosas. And this one is by Grandiflora and it's called Saskia. And this one I think is known for being a gardenia type of perfume, but for me, this is all about the mimosa, which kind of took me aback because I purchased this because I really wanted a gardenia perfume. But like I said, in the end, this really turned out to be all about the mimosa, which I could not be happier about. And this perfume is named after the woman who created it. I don't know her last name, but she is a very famous floral designer and she owns a shop in Australia. So this was created to feel like you are stepping into her flower shop. And while I feel like there is some truth to that, I really do get the feeling of being outdoors when I smell this. But let's go ahead and dive into my full experience of this perfume. When you first spray this perfume, you really do get the feeling that you are surrounded by very lush, glorious gardenia blossoms. So in terms of feeling like you're walking into a florist shop, I do get that feeling at the very beginning of this perfume experience. So when I first spray this perfume, I get that feeling of a dewy kind of dampness, that feeling that you would get if there were gardenias in a refrigerator and you open it up and there's kind of that cool sensation, kind of damp in there, and there's just like a big bucket of gardenias. That's the olfactory sensation I get when I first spray this perfume. But for me, the gardenia is pretty short-lived. And at first I was a little bit disappointed in that. I really did want that gardenia lushness to last for a lot longer than it did. But now that I have worn this more and I have really fallen for mimosa and I have sort of changed my idea of what this perfume should be, I have actually truly fallen for this perfume. And so this is where I transitioned from being in Saskia's flower shop and having my nose in a bucket full of gardenia in her refrigerator to walking outside of her shop. And I imagine myself being surrounded by the Acacia dealbata, which I believe is native to Australia. If it's not native, I believe it grows pretty abundantly in Australia. So now I'm outside, I'm surrounded by the fluffy yellow blossoms. There's bees buzzing all over the place, and I've got the sun on my skin. So everything feels very alive, warm, honeyed. I've got the buzzing of the bees. That's what this smells like to me. So it feels very buzzy, very alive, very warm, very honeyed, very sweet. That's the picture that's conjured up in my mind when I have this on my skin. There's also ylang ylang in here, immortelle, baronia. And I feel like those notes are probably adding to that kind of buzzy register that I get from this perfume, which sometimes I really don't like. For instance, there is something about this perfume that reminds me a little bit about Guerlain L'Instant. And that was a perfume that I could not wear on my skin. I remember there was a doctor in the clinic that I used to work at, and she would wear it and I really liked smelling it on her, but there was something about it on my skin that just did not work for me. But there is an aspect about this perfume that reminds me of the sillage of Guerlain's L'Instant. So it does make me happy that there's a perfume that kind of reminds me of L'Instant that I can actually wear. So anyway, I do think that Saskia is absolutely beautiful. I love it for the fact that it starts out as this gorgeous, lush, gardenia perfume that then turns into this beautiful, sunny, buzzy mimosa perfume. So big hit for me when it comes to Grandiflora's Saskia. Now the next one is Herba Mimosa, and this is by Chloe. This is part of their Atelier des Fleurs collection. And this one strikes me as the most purely happy mimosa as you can get. So there are no notes listed when you look up this perfume. I think it just says mimosa, of course. And then the only other thing that you can find about this perfume, or at least that I could find about it, is that there's some woody and vegetal notes in this perfume as well. I personally do not get any woody or vegetal notes in this perfume. To me, it really feels like the mimosa blossom distilled down to its sweetness. There's none of that pollen type of quality in here or animalic quality. It's very clean, very bright. On the opening, this perfume is very citrusy and very green. And then as it develops on the skin, I would say it's very airy, it's very bright, it's very cheerful. And again, like I said, it's a very sweet mimosa perfume. I would not say this is similar to Caleche at all, but it is very elegant and very classy. I want to show you the bottle up close because speaking of being classy and elegant, this is one of the most beautiful bottles that I have seen in a long time. I think it is very classy and very elegant. And because it is such a pretty bottle and because the perfume is so pretty, I feel like this would be such a beautiful Mother's Day gift. So anyway, I just thought I would throw it out there that I do think this is a pretty safe buy when it comes to gift giving. In terms of the perfumes that I've mentioned so far, I would say this is probably the most simple one. The other three that I've mentioned are more complex, and ultimately I do like the other three better that I have talked about so far, but I really feel like this is just super pretty, very, very beautiful. And if you are a mimosa lover, this is definitely one to add to your collection. And then finally, this is the perfume that started my mimosa obsession. This is Diptyque's L'Eau Papier. I've already spoken about this perfume on this channel here. This was in my video where I talked about my favorite perfumes for spring. I've also talked about this on my other channel, so I'll try to keep my musings brief about this perfume, but I'm sure it's pretty obvious that I absolutely love this perfume. So if you're not familiar with L'Eau Papier, this obviously has notes of mimosa. It also has notes of rice and sesame as well as musk. Now, when you go to the Diptyque website, they specify that in terms of the rice note, that it is a rice steam accord. And as I've gotten to know this perfume even better, I would completely agree with that description of the rice steam accord because the top note of this perfume is very vapor-like. So when I spray this onto my skin, I definitely get a sense of heat on my skin, and it does feel like it kind of vaporizes. It's really interesting, really unique, and it's really, really beautiful. And I don't really get so much of the sesame in this perfume. I don't think sesame is listed on the Diptyque website. If you look at Fragrantica, they talk about sesame. But anyway, for me, it's not really about the sesame. It's definitely more about that steamy rice top note, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And then it truly becomes all about the mimosa for me in this perfume. And it's this interesting, almost dichotomous experience of mimosa for me because it's deeply, deeply musky, but it also retains its luminosity. And when I talk about it being musky, I know that Diptyque says there's white musk in this perfume, and I typically don't like white musk. I find it to be very overbearing. I find it to be kind of suffocating. And it's quite possibly that other perfume lines tend to be a little bit heavy-handed with their musk. But whatever the case is, in this particular perfume, if they truly are using white musk, they have used it very judiciously, or maybe they have just used higher quality white musk than other perfume lines tend to use. Whatever the case is, the musk in here has a really nice deep quality to it. So what ends up happening is the mimosa becomes more full-bodied while also retaining that luminosity. So it still is bright and sunny. And how I described my feeling about this perfume in a past video was if you have a linen sheet drying in the sun next to mimosa blossoms, so you've got the heat of the sun coming through the fibers of the fabric and the scent that is emitted from fabric that is heating up. So the sun is coming through that fabric, you've got the blossoms perfuming that linen, and that whole scent experience is how I feel about L'Eau Papier. So I don't really get the paper experience from this perfume. It just feels more like that steamy vapor that they talk about at the top, and then this feeling of fabric heating up from the sun with the blossoms around, and you're outside in your backyard. Anyway, that's the vision that I get from this perfume. I absolutely love it. I'm obsessed with this perfume still. And like I said, it has created this larger mimosa obsession for me. And I have fully enjoyed going down this mimosa rabbit hole, learning more about mimosa, rediscovering mimosa in Caleche, which has been a favorite of mine for a very, very long time. And then discovering some new perfumes for my collection that have mimosa in it has really been such a delight and such a pleasure. So I would love to hear from you all in the comments down below what your favorite mimosa perfumes are, what note obsessions you might be currently experiencing right now. And also, if you are watching this video and you are enjoying it, but you have not yet subscribed, I would absolutely love it if you would do so. And if you like this video, please do give me a thumbs up. And thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you soon.